My father-in-law stared me down across the dinner table and said, "You'll never be a real man until you take care of your wife's family." What he really meant was, "Put my son on your mortgage." I smiled politely, but inside, I was done being disrespected. Hi, I'm Michael Reeves. I'm 34 years old, and what I'm about to tell you isn't just about money or family pressure. It's about finally standing up for yourself, even when it means drawing a line with the people who think they own you. I didn't grow up with much. My mom was a night shift nurse, and my dad fixed cars out of a rusty garage behind our house. We didn't take vacations. We didn't eat out. What we did have was love, discipline, and the belief that your word mattered. When I met Vanessa, my wife now, it was at a friend's barbecue. She had this soft laugh that hit me like a slow song, and the kind of eyes that made everything else go quiet. We dated for 3 years, built our life brick by brick. I worked in IT and took every side job I could. Vanessa was a teacher, and we dreamed of owning a home one day, not just for us, but for the kids we hoped to have. Now here's the thing about Vanessa's family. They were tight, not close. Tight, closed off. Her dad, Frank, was this ex-military guy with a voice like gravel and opinions carved in stone. Her brother, Cameron, was 4 years younger than me, and let's just say the only thing he'd ever committed to was his Xbox. Vanessa was the responsible one, the peacemaker. And me? I was the guy who got the cold nod when I walked in the room. Still, I made an effort. Every birthday, every holiday, I was there. I painted their fence one summer without being asked. When Cameron wrecked his car, I helped pay for the tow truck. Not because I had to, but because I believed that being part of a family means showing up. Then came the big moment. Vanessa and I finally had enough saved to buy our first house. It wasn't a mansion, but it had a little yard, a solid roof, and a front porch she could put her flower pots on. We were thrilled. That's when everything changed. Frank invited us to dinner to talk. I thought maybe he was going to congratulate us. Instead, he launched into this speech about family duty and how the smart move would be for us to add Cameron to the mortgage. I blinked, thinking I'd misheard. "He's living at home still," Frank said. "But if he's on the house, he can start building credit. You two are in love. You'll do the right thing." Vanessa looked stunned. I looked at Frank and asked, as politely as I could, "Why would we put your son, who has no job, on our mortgage?" That was the first time I saw the crack in Frank's mask. His jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed, and then he said the line I'll never forget. "Because if you won't take care of your wife's family, maybe you're not the man she thinks you are." In that moment, something in me shifted. The man I'd been, the polite, "Don't rock the boat, Michael," he took a step back. Because I realized, sometimes standing up for yourself means standing alone. After that dinner, I thought maybe it was just heat of the moment nonsense. People say wild things when they're emotional, right? I figured Frank would cool off. Maybe even apologize. He didn't. Instead, things got weird. Vanessa started getting calls from her mom. Not even subtle ones, more like strategic guilt bombs. It's not just about Cameron. It's about the family being secure. Frank's blood pressure has been up since that dinner. "You don't want your brother out on the street, do you?" And then Cameron himself called me. At first, I thought he might be ready to talk things out, man to man. Nope. "Dude," he said, "I get that you're nervous about your credit or whatever, but it's not like I'm gonna skip out. I'm family. Come on, just do it for Vanessa." I asked him point blank, "Do you even have a job lined up?" He laughed, and said, "Not yet, but once I'm on the mortgage, I'll have to get serious." I hung up. I didn't yell, I didn't snap, I just hung up. But the worst part wasn't them. It was what it did to Vanessa. She started questioning herself. Maybe it's not a big deal. We'll still be making the payments. Cameron's name would just be there. What if this tears the family apart? I love my wife. I've never loved anyone like I love her. But watching her try to hold a house of cards together while everyone else kept blowing on it, it broke something in me. Every visit became a test. Frank would bring up money, drop phrases like, "Real men build up, not wall off." At a 4th of July cookout, in front of a dozen relatives, he actually toasted me as the guy who's almost part of the family. Everyone laughed. I didn't. Even Vanessa's cousins started treating me differently. One of them, some guy named Rob, cornered me in the garage with a beer in his hand and said, "You know, in this family we look out for each other. You sure you're cut out for that?" I looked him straight in the eye and said, "You mean you look out for each other, as long as someone else is paying for it?" He didn't laugh. But Frank did. From across the yard, like it was some kind of game. The pressure didn't stop there. Vanessa's mom started floating the idea that they could move in with us eventually. You know, just until they retire. One by one, the walls were closing in. I felt like I was being asked to trade my backbone for a seat at a table I never wanted to be at. One night, Vanessa and I had it out. Not a fight, but the kind of raw, painful conversation that either breaks you or binds you tighter. I told her, "I didn't marry your family. I married you. And if this house is going to be our home, it's got to start with our rules." She cried. Then she nodded. Then she asked the question that changed everything. What do we do now? A week after that conversation with Vanessa, we made our decision. We weren't adding Cameron to the mortgage, we weren't mixing guilt with equity, and we weren't asking permission. But I still wanted to do it respectfully. At least, that was the plan. We invited her parents and Cameron over to our apartment. I had everything ready. Loan documents, house inspection papers, and the keys in a small envelope sitting on the table. My chest was tight, but I felt clear. When they came in, Frank barely made eye contact. Cameron flopped on the couch like he owned the place. Vanessa's mom handed her a Tupperware of lasagna and said, "You'll need this when you start moving us in." I took a breath. "We have an announcement," I said, standing. Frank smirked like he already knew what was coming. "So you're finally stepping up?" I smiled politely. "Actually, yeah. We closed on the house this morning." Vanessa chimed in, her voice calm but steady. "The house is ours, just ours." There was a beat of silence. Then Frank's face twisted. "Wait, what?" I reached for the envelope, opened it slowly, and placed the keys on the table. "We wanted you to hear it from us first." "You bought the house without us?" he snapped. "Without you?" I said. Number without Cameron. Frank stood up so fast his chair scraped the tile. "You arrogant little, do you think this is how family works? You just cut people out?" Cameron stood up too, chest puffed. "You screwed me, man. I needed this." Vanessa spoke before I could. "No, Cameron," she said. "We needed this. We needed to do this on our own, and you needed to grow up." That's when Frank lost it. He lunged across the table like a storm, grabbed the envelope, shoved the papers onto the floor, keys clattering against tile. "You think you're a man? Men don't hoard success, they share it." I stood up, calm, centered. Men also don't sign legal documents just to coddle grown adults who refuse to take responsibility for their lives. Frank glared at me, breathing hard. For a second, I thought he might hit me. I didn't move. Instead, I picked up the keys, handed them to Vanessa, and turned to Cameron. "You want to build credit? Get a job? Get a lease? Build something that's yours?" Frank looked at Vanessa, expecting her to shrink. She didn't. She took my hand and said, We're done trying to prove ourselves to people who don't want to see us." And just like that, we walked them out. Frank shouted something as we shut the door, but I didn't hear it. I was too focused on the sound of our future. Quiet, steady, and finally ours. The silence after they left was almost too loud. Vanessa sat on the edge of the couch, holding the keys like they were made of glass. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. Just processing. I sat beside her. Neither of us spoke for a while. The weight of what we'd just done wasn't lost on us. You don't draw a line like that in a family without consequences. And oh, the consequences came fast. The next day, her mother sent a long text. I read it over Vanessa's shoulder. Guilt-tripping poetry, really. "We raised you better. Family means sacrifice. You've embarrassed your father." But what really stuck was the last line. "Until you fix this, don't come around." Vanessa didn't reply. She just turned off her phone and laid her head on my chest. For the first few weeks, it was like we were grieving something invisible. Not just the fallout with her family, but the illusion that they'd ever truly respected us. Every time we drove past her parents' neighborhood, she'd turn her face to the window. Cameron unfriended us on every platform. Her dad blocked my number. Her mom told mutual friends we had blindsided them out of greed. But something strange happened in that space between heartbreak and healing. We started breathing easier. There was no more second-guessing at dinner, no more fake smiles at family events. We weren't walking on eggshells. We were walking on our own floors, in our own house. We painted the living room, got a used couch, spent a Saturday arguing over curtain rods like a normal married couple. And for the first time since the engagement, Vanessa laughed without restraint. Real, full-bodied laughter. I asked her one night, "Do you regret it?"